Um, I just hope I don't mess up today. And it's just technical stuff. I'm sorry about yesterday. What I wanted to do yesterday was I wanted to zoom in and out with my camera, and on my iPhone, when I went to do that, it disconnected my camera from this system and I couldn't recover. So today I'm not going to zoom. I'll just hold the quilt closer or pull it back, and we're going to have a fun display of quilts today. I'm not going to touch anything. I think it is working, but just don't laugh at me if I'm having trouble. But I also, while we're getting started today, I wanted to do a little report on the bears, because we do have bears out and about, but we have one bear that's been a little bit fussy. It's a young, probably year and a half old bear, and I talked about it yesterday. And today I actually have some video for you so that you cannot have to just imagine. So let me see if I can make this happen for you. And I will hit this, and there we go. So, all right. So here you go. This is the bear coming up to my little garden. I am standing in the bottom right corner. You can see my table. So I'm inside, just there is that little bear. And it looked like he might have been in the creek prior because he's a little bit wet. I told him, I tapped on the window, then I went outside and said, "You got to get out of here." And I turned off that audio so you don't have to listen to it. But it ran, and then it decided, no, I don't need to run anymore. I'm just going to sit there and stop. So there's my little bear. He doesn't have a name or anything. And then that was 2 days ago. Yesterday morning, I'm sitting having my coffee, and here he is again. You'll actually see the smudges on our breakfast window. This is not really far away, maybe 50, 60 feet away, sitting on up at our little bench. And so he stood there for a little while, went away, and then later in the day, one more time, here he comes back. This is just off. You can see some landscaping right there. Doesn't look like it, but it is landscaping. But there's our house. So we have had bears, the discouraging thing is usually they run. They just go as far away as possible. And he's kind of like, maybe I'll leave, maybe I won't leave. I'm not sure, but nonetheless, that's what they're doing for all of that. So let me get back to my eCam on this, and then maybe I can see my overlays, my windows, my chats. We're really happy to have you guys here today. Thank you so much. Interview chat, camera switches, bandwidth, all these things that I have to find. Comments and reactions. There we go. Now I'm seeing you guys. All right, so I want to get right into it. I've got some wonderful things to share with you and show with you today. So I want to be able to do that. Let's go here and get back to eCam. Where's my window? Let's go here. There I am. And I'm laughing so hard because what I need to find is just not there. I just give up. I need to switch to my cameras, and I need a quick keynote. Let's just do that. That'll help me a lot. And don't save, delete that. Here I am. Yay, it's back. All right, I started with this yesterday. I'll start with it again today. This is by Ami Sims. There's her little card in the back. And by the way, these little triangles are put on the quilt. They're little folded half squares, or they're squares folded in half. They're put onto the quilt, so when the binding gets sewn on, this becomes a little hanging sleeve. You could put a little stick in there and then use that to hang. But anyway, this is from Almi did the Alzheimer's Art Quilt Initiative where she would raise money for Alzheimer's. She made this one and it is really cute. It just says, I love you, heart and soul. And on her episode, she talked about stamping and she talked about how her mom made stamps. So really a fun, wonderful treasure. And I like this quilt. This is denim, so this is done on jeans, polka dot fabric, hand embroidery, I love you, simple little heart, and then stamping of somebody's tennis shoe right there. So that's a fun way to do a fun quilt. And you guys, sometimes we just want to make gifts for our friends. These are the kind of easy things that you can do, and I love this hanging sleeve method because when you put the binding on, it's ready to go. Now, it could be hung upside down, but let's don't do it upside down. Anyway, I think it looks really, really good. All right, so the next quilt I'm going to show you is this one. This is called Crown of Thorns, and so it would probably go like this, but you can see that here it is. And on this particular quilt, let me see if I can tilt that just a little bit better for you. This is an Amish design, Crown of Thorns. And I acquired this miniature quilt at the miniature quilt auction in St. Louis many, many years ago. I was quite the baby quilter, and once a year we did a miniature auction for the show. And this is made by one of my now longtime friends, Cindy Neville from St. Louis. And the labels are always important, you guys. But I just have always loved Amish quilts. And that's a lot of little triangles to put together. It's hand quilted, and I really love this. This is a quilt that I'm one of these people that, because of being a musician, when I see color, it gives me a vibe of a key. It can be major or minor. Some things are diminished, but like when I see dark purple like this, I think of E flat minor. And that's just to me, a really dark sound. And whenever I see something like this that's much brighter, I go into the more F major type of a tonality. So it's really fun because then I can play these chords on the piano and kind of make music out of them. But this is a really, really fun quilt, and I like it. You can see a lot of these are going to be miniatures. The quilts that I've collected have typically been miniatures. I don't have a lot of large quilts that I've purchased or acquired over the years. This is a quilt made by none other than John Flynn himself. And John is known for doing the 5-pointed stars and having to draft these. This is not done on foundation, paper piecing. John really uses templates, and he's very meticulous about his seam allowance. Even a 32nd of an inch off is not close enough for John. And he also is very much known for this braided border, but normally it's straight, and he was able to draft this border so that it would, follow the circle all the way around. So when you look at this, it looks well done and it looks straightforward, but if you could just in your mind think about the calculations that had to be done to get the right points to be in the right place to fit around this particular circle. That is what John Flynn, the bridge builder quilter, is known for doing. So I'm really fun to have this. I acquired this at the International Quilt Show in Houston when the International Quilt Association had its miniature auctions. A lot of the celebrity quilters would have quilts, and over the years I've acquired many, many quilts from that particular auction, which I don't believe exists anymore, but nonetheless, it was a great resource for finding quilts. So this quilt, this is by Carol Bragg of St. Louis. This is a quilt that she had put in a show, but I just loved it so much that I asked to buy it from her. This is just my vibe all around. I loved the hand-dyed fabrics. They're not mine. It's done with, just free piecing. It's extremely flat, which I love. And while most of the time I gravitate to quilts that are heavily quilted, for whatever reason, this quilt just speaks to me because it is only quilted in the ditch. And by the way, the date here, 1996. So I don't know if you can see that or not. Let me see if I can hold it up to the camera a little bit. You can see Carol's name there and 1996 just tucked in there on the quilt itself. I love this and I enjoy having it. So it's moderately quilted. You can see there's not a lot, but nonetheless, I think it works really great. I know for show quilts, we tend to quilt more, but sometimes just for just getting it done, I think it looks great. Pretty happy about that quilt. Now this quilt, this is such a fun quilt and it is amazing. I'm going to try to show you some details. This is by Rachel Denny from Australia. Now Rachel won, I believe it was Best of Show in Houston, and then the following year she ended up making a quilt for that auction, and I ended up getting it. But look at the back of this quilt. Now, because I'm showing right now, you guys, I have to admit I'm focused here. I'm not looking over at comments. I'll try to go through comments later on the various platforms and respond, or hopefully somebody will know an answer to your question and can respond as well. But this back is painted, and that is done on this gold fabric after the quilting. So on this is beautiful, beautiful applique. You can see the detail of the quilting on this. I mean, look at the detail. It is stunning quilting. Free motion quilting on a domestic sewing machine. You guys, we now live in the world that we think the long arms are the only way to machine quilt, and yet many of us, and I still quilt on my domestic a lot, even though I finally have a long arm. This is beautiful quilt. So after it's quilted, the quilting outlines these areas to do that beautiful painting on the back. So this is Mini Amethyst. It was made in 2011 by Rachel Denny from Australia. And she says it's a small version of my larger quilt, Royal Amethyst. And that's the big, wonderful prize-winning quilt. It was machine appliqued and quilted on a Brother QC 100. It is 100% cotton top backing and batting. And that's the thing about labels, is that's where we get the information. That information would be lost if we didn't do that. All right, so next I'm going to show you this quilt. This is our sweet little raisin. I know some of you have followed me for a long time and you will have known these stories, but many of you may not. Sweet Raisin passed away in 2013 in August. It was a very fast illness. She had renal failure and she was gone too soon. She was only 7.5 years old. And I commissioned Nancy Brown, who does the most amazing hand needle turn applique portraits of animals. And here's, see Raisin's little collar. Her little says Raisin on the collar. And Nancy Brown out of Oakland, California did this. And Raisin even had what I called a cracked eye. She had a little, I don't know, like a little marble crack in her eye on one of them. And so Nancy is really amazing with detail. And then the background is just crazy pieced to put together. But her use of fabric to create this amazing portrait, it is wonderful. So this one actually hangs kind of in our kitchen area. So I see this a lot, but it is a beautiful, beautiful quilt. And if you don't know Nancy's work, you just got to go snoop. Now she's on the Quilt Show. Many of the people that I'm sharing today will be on episodes of the Quilt Show, and so look in the comments for the links to those episodes. And then I'm going to show you another quilt, 2 more quilts by Nancy Brown. I actually have 4 quilts. One of them I don't have handy today, but this is Katie, our beloved Katie, and Katie lived to be about 14 years old. This was made in 2005, and right after we had gotten her, and Katie ended up being on the page of the day calendars. Now, there's a dog calendar, there's a cat calendar, page a day. Katie was not only accepted into the 2005 calendar, but she was top dog of the year. They have a dog of the week, dog of the month, and out of all 365, they have a dog of the year. And Katie was dog of the year, and this was the pose that Nancy used for that quilt. And it's wonderful to see the commercial fabrics, but then she put this on my hand-dyed fabric background. I just think it's great. And then Katie had a little brother, and Kodak. We lost him early as well, but it's just wonderful to have these portraits. Kodak had a blue eye and a brown eye, and I'll let you see because Nancy does do hand quilting, so you can see that these are hand quilted. It's just amazing. And you know what? You don't have to make a gargantuan quilt. We love working in fabric. These are approximately, maybe at the most, 14 inches square, so they're not big. And then, the applique itself is in probably about a 9 or 8 inch square. So I think it's really fabulous. Also, just for detail, right here along this area, that is an embroidered stitch to just highlight, and it's black right here, and then it turns to gray right here to create those kind of details and outlines. I'll also go back briefly to Katie's quilt because there's the same kind of thing happening to create the details. I love this use of fabric right here to bring out that just, the black and tan. It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well done, Nancy, world famous quilter. I love her so very much. Now, you guys, this quilt, I hope it will show. This is Cindy Needham, and she made this when she was on the quilt show. Let's go to the label. Made especially for Ricky Tim's Thank You for My Wonderful Day on the quilt show, August the 5th of 2007, Cindy Needham. And the quilting design is adapted from Dad's Lone Star, which is one of the most iconic quilts that I have that my dad and I made together. So not only did Cindy, who uses those amazing linens, in this case it's a handkerchief, beautifully done, right? The quilting in here, you see the Lone Star, and if you'll look even in this area, these are the appliques that I have on my quilt. Now my quilt is 93 inches square, and she's turned that entire quilt into a little miniature with just the quilting. Look at all of this. It's amazing. So this is a real treasure, Cindy. I don't know if you remember. I'm sure you do remember, but yes, ma'am, I do still have this one. Cindy is fabulous with using, and look how the sleeve here is another little piece of linen for this. Fabulous. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Now I've got two quilts, surprisingly, for me, because I didn't purchase these, but these are by Carol Breyer-Fallert. Now Carol, over the years, has used storks and geese and birds of flight in particular, large birds, as a theme. And so these cranes were done on her hand-dyed fabrics. The stitching is beautiful. I think I can show both of these side by side. These were quilts that Carol would sell when she would travel and teach. And Carol is, of course, one of my inspirations. Her beautiful quilting, the way she creates these beautiful flowing, and this entire bird is quilted. I mean, the whole thing. Let me just put it up. But I had a friend in St. Louis when Carol came to teach, and my friend bought these two quilts. And my friend passed away about 3.5, 4 years ago. Well, it wouldn't have been before COVID, so let's go back to maybe 2019. So it's been 5 or 6 years ago. And when the family came across these quilts, her children sent them to me. So I came into possession of them after she passed away. But I really love seeing the detail on these. And Carol is known in many cases for using a really like a 30-weight thread for quilting to create a real dynamic impact on those. So those are by Carol Breyer Fowler, and I'm very fortunate to have those. Now the next two quilts, I wonder if anybody can, without me saying, can you, I'm going to go over to the comments and see, can you tell me who that is? Because somebody's going to know. So I'm over here in the comments, letting you just study this. The quilt is made by Lola Jenkins, and this is from 2014. Lola has been on the Quilt Show, I believe 2 times, but Lola is absolutely, she is a delight, and she is a renegade, but the end result of what she makes is absolutely stunning. And yes, you have it, you guys. Everybody that's guessing is guessing correct. Maya Angelou, and she is absolutely fantastic. So look at just look how, I mean, it's simple shapes, but it has to be done in such a way to really, really get that. So Maya Angelou, I know why the caged bird sings. She's a great poet and is a very big inspiration. So I acquired this. I mean, Lola, I believe Lola came to the taping with the Quilt Show, and she had, you know, they always bring a few quilts. I think all of them sold. So here's my Maya Angelou quilt by Lola, and this is untitled, but I call this one just old woman, worried woman. And the detail in this is just fabulous. And I love Lola's explanation. She says, I just slap it down and I sew it on. I just put that down and I sew it together. And it's like, you know that there's genius behind it whenever it turns out so amazing. But then at the same time, somebody that's just not overthinking. And one thing I can say about Lola's work is she does not overthink at all. So it's beautifully done. There's a lot of stitching that stitches down some of the areas and elements. I'm sure you can see that as well. But the realism, even in the eyes, I'm looking at this on the camera the same way you are, because I'm standing, of course, looking at this. But just standing here and looking at this, it looks amazing. And then on what you're seeing on camera, the way those eyes and the expression of the hands on the face, it's just super. So Lola Jenkins, I'm so happy to have that quilt. And as promised, let's go down under again. This is a quilt by Pam Holland, one of our favorites. Of course, Pam is legendary. She's such an artist in many, many different ways. And look at these wonderful little camel tassels that are hanging down. Just so realistic. And then that she put these buttons. Now, Pam, I should tell you the whole story. I don't need to hold back. Pam had made this for the Quilt Life magazine that Alex and I did with the American Quilter Society company. We did that for 5.5 years. And she made this as a project for the magazine. And so it got sent to the United States, and it needed to get sent back. It was in my possession, and I said, I don't want to send it back. Can I just buy it from you? And she said, no, you can just keep it. And I went, no, I'm happy to buy it from you, Pam. She said, no, please just keep it. So we argued, and then the next time I saw her at a quilt show, we argued some more. But in the end, I have to say I'm very honored and grateful to have this gift from Pam Holland, and it's just beautiful. So of course the black stitching is all free motion, and very little, she will use Suki Nico paints to create shadows and lights at times, and I can see a little bit of shadowing, around the faces, but you can see how fun it is to put together. Beautifully done with the buttons and everything. And then there's the quilt. There it is. Cute Camels by Pam Holland, 19 by 16 inches. I love it, and I hope you do too. You want to see the details to get a little closer? There we go. I hope you're having fun seeing these quilts. I love, so many quilts. All right, you guys, now we're to my personal cheerleader, my personal dearest friend, Suzanne Marshall. And if you're not familiar with her work, I hope that you will just devour it. Go to the episode on the Quilt Show and watch what she does. I think of Suzanne as being just about the most excellent hand applique quilter out there, and her quilting is equally impressive. Suzanne has won numerous top prizes, first prizes at the international shows like Paducah and Houston, and best of shows at many places over the years. And she's won best hand workmanship awards. She's from St. Louis, Missouri, Clayton, Missouri, which is part of St. Louis. But I want you to get here and now look up and close. You cannot see any, this is all hand needle turned applique, and you will not see one sewing stitch on the edges. They are so beautiful and invisible. And then there are times whenever she will do things like, look at the little red embroidery just around the eye of that bird. And I know you can see that just around the eye. And then the fabric itself had the white dot. So she's finding just the right fabric to use for this. And then look at the hand quilting in this. It is superb. Now, this was a simple little piece that she made for an auction for the Rocky Mountain Quilt Museum. I won this at the auction. So of course it's going to be even, while it's absolutely amazing, I can tell you that her show quilts are even more over the top than what we're looking at in this. I think it's really, really beautiful. And I have two quilts from Suzanne. This is one that I just love. Her husband's name is Garland, and this is Garland Reading. The name of this quilt is called The Avid Reader, made with love for Ricky, Suzanne Marshall, 2015. And I love the design. She found this wonderful design I think this is based on old like 1200, 1300 year manuscripts. But she found these characters that she's done, and she was able to create her husband into this shape. And of course, he's reading because that's what he does. I just love it. Look at the buttons. They're just appliqued on, and then two little French knots creating that. And then the other thing that Suzanne now does really well at, not only does she do the applique that is so perfect, it's so perfectly turned, and then she then comes in with the hand embroidery to do the stitching, to outline, to create all of those outlines around the edge of the applique. And then here we have a little piece of gauze, so the eye was appliqued on, and then kind of like a very fine, it's probably a gauzy type fabric that's also then done over that to create that illusion. Isn't that fabulous, you guys? Just really, really amazing. And I don't know, Suzanne has just had a knack for years of just finding the right fabric. Look at the fabric for the hair. Look at the fabric for these shoes. It just feels leathery. It just feels right. And yet when you look at it up close and personal, you'll see that it's just a little bit, it's got a texture on it that she just has a real knack for doing that. Suzanne, I love you dearly. You know that. And thank you so much for all the inspiration and encouragement you've been to me over the years. So this is a sample. It's a quilt, but it was a sample quilt from Libby Lehman. And Libby was known for these sheer ribbon illusions. And this is just one of those examples. Her quilt, Joyride, which is one of the top 100 quilts of the 20th century, featured this on a much larger quilt. But Libby would come in, she would draw her design, and then she would come in and do free motion embroidery. That's not quilting. You can see that all of that is not quilted through to the back side, but she would embroider in a hoop, free motion, and she would do the dark pink, and then she would come back and scribble and do the heavy with the outline to create that kind of flipping over and twisting over and back and forth movement. If you're needing to create something like that, it's all about light and shadow. And so Libby was able to create that effect of light and shadow by changing the colors of the thread. There's only 2 colors, but it's really dense on the edge and it's less dense, so they blend. And then this one is just a regular density to create that color. And then I'm noticing this is a different color than this. And this is a lighter color than this, but this is a darker color than this. So this ribbon has a little darker impact than this one does. Isn't that fabulous? And by the way, just to let you know, I'm planning to do a little chat with Libby, talking with her husband. We're trying to find a time that we can do that because I would love for you to hear from Libby. Of course, she was one of our TQS legends. She had a stroke in the year 2013, and we thought she would never recover, but she has done very well. She cannot effectively quilt anymore, so that chapter of her life is gone, but she's doing very well, and I enjoy when I get to go to Houston. We go out together and have lunch and margaritas. So Libby she is not giving up. She is a great gal. This is another quilt, a little sample quilt from Libby. And these were used in my seminars. And so she's got these shears, and the shears go over the fabric. And then she's done with the Bernina free motion couching foot. She's used that. She's used Ricky Tim's Razzle Dazzle thread in the bobbin to do this sort of outline. And just fun overlays, textures, layering, and creating so many different layers. It's a beautiful quilt. This also, the spirals, those are also Razzle Dazzle. They would have been done in the bobbin as a quilted element, and then there they are on the surface. All right, now, I wonder if anybody could guess who this quilt's from. And I'm gonna give you a hint. The hint is up here, okay? I'm just gonna have to wait for a second to see if anybody's gonna chime in with who this might be. Yep, Libby was great, Quilting by the Lake. I can't wait to read your comments, you guys, because I'm having to talk. You got it, Lynn. Very good. Susan Cleveland. I think Susan may be our most repeated guest on the Quilt Show. She's such a great teacher and such a delight. And this quilt was made, speaking of Libby, this quilt was made for an auction that was taking place at Houston to help raise money for Libby and her medical bills after her stroke and the long recovery that she was doing. And so these quilts were all about this size. And Susan Cleveland made this, and I was lucky enough to be the winner of the auction for this. I think that we raised something in the neighborhood of $70,000 or $80,000 from these quilts. There were several quilts, but boy, the quilters really came out in droves. So you can see I can't get this one any further away, you guys. So you're just having to see little bits of it. But it is about 30 inches big. So it's not super huge, but I really like it. And of course, Susan is the piping hottie. She has her piping hot binding, her prairie pointer tool, and you can learn all about that by watching her episode on The Quilt Show at thequiltshow.com. Beautiful, beautiful work. All right, now speaking of that same auction, I bought 2 quilts there. This one I don't know that you could easily guess, but the name of this quilt is, just because I know it's called, Libby, the Star of Texas. So this was also in that auction, and it was made by one of the quilting world's most iconic art quilters. Super famous, a legend on the quilt show, and no longer with us. And if you can see it right here, it is Yvonne Porcella. So she loved Libby dearly, and Libby was certainly an independent woman. So Yvonne used this, put Texas here, and then did the Yellow Rose of Texas. And by the way, if you don't know the story of the Yellow Rose of Texas, I would just say go Google that, because it's not just a flower. Emily Morgan is a very important character in the nation of Texas. You can go read about Emily Morgan, who was known as the Yellow Rose of Texas. But beautiful quilt. So happy to have this treasure made by our lovely beloved Yvonne Porcella. Yvonne Porcella was the founder of Sakwa Studio Art Quilt Associates, which of course is worldwide known as probably the preeminent art quilting organization out there. And her legacy still lives on, and all of us are indebted to Yvonne for her work. Just about 3 more quilts. Now this one I am so fortunate to have. Now you're going to see this is just, it's a cloth that's been kind of basted, and this particular artist would use it for this. It didn't get a lot. This is made by Debbie Schnabel. And Debbie, I don't even know what order to tell you this in. Debbie and I showed Cocker Spaniels in the 80s. She and her mother bred Cocker Spaniels. I got very interested in Cocker Spaniels. I met Debbie and her mom. I started showing and breeding Cocker Spaniels with Debbie. We ended up working in a pet shop that she owned together. She moved to Wichita Falls, Texas. Her dogs and my dogs lived in the same house. We had a big flood in 1981, and we had to save the dogs. We had 17 show Cocker Spaniels, and we had to save, we could each take 2, so we saved 6. We got them to safety, and fortunately we were able to get back and save all of the dogs. But Debbie and I had a very long history. And then I was not even close to a quilter in the 80s. I'm a musician. Debbie was a dog show person, and she ended up going into neonatal nursing. But somewhere along the way, her path went into quilting, and she's in California. My path went into quilting. I'm in Missouri, and we reconnected after years. Debbie came to this area with a friend of hers named Robin to take a class from Judith Baker Montano. And while Robin was in class, Debbie was just doing these little samples. This is the church that's just down the road from where I live. This church has now fallen over. The steeple is down on the ground. It is a derelict, now falling down. Debbie did this based on a photo that she took while she was here, and then our little Spanish Peaks area, she stitched all of this, and I love this. Debbie ended up being a guest on the quilt show. I'm like, how our paths crossed after so many years, and she's now teaching on the quilt show. And then about 2 years ago, it's not quite been 2 years, Debbie died, and she had a very short bout with Alzheimer's. And so I contacted the family. I knew her sister, and I just said, if there's any way that you would allow me to purchase this small piece that I remember Debbie doing, it would really be a treasure for me. So I am very grateful to have this. I'm just going to get up close so that you can see the stitching and the details that Debbie did on this. She really was a delight, and I miss her. She was a dear friend. I have hand needlepoint Christmas ornaments in my Christmas ornament box that come out every year that Debbie made. So I'm very grateful that the family was willing to let me purchase this and bring it to my collection. Two more quilts I won't be so long with. It's my self-portrait quilt. Yeah. So when I did a self-portrait quilt, it was important that I use my hand-dyed fabrics because that's kind of what I'm known for. I tend to wear a cowboy hat when you see me out and about. I'm known for wearing plaid shirts. I don't always wear a bolo, but I do like them. And of course, my glasses are always down at the end of my nose. And the number one and then the quilted feathers, those are very typical of me, applique feathers that are on my quilts. But, and by the way, I do sometimes stitch my name right in the quilt. Not always, but many times, most of the time. And everybody asks about the green nose. Why is the nose green? And I tell them that was the piece of fabric that was laying there when I picked it up. And so it's a green nose. I don't have a green thumb. I try. But nonetheless, I have a green nose and people ask about it all the time. So that's my self-portrait quilt. And finally, the last quilt I'm going to show you today is this quilt, and it's way big. I believe I need to go, let me go back. Hi, everybody. I just want to show you a picture of this quilt. No, I can't do that now because I've lost it. So I'm going to go back to this camera. It's just a larger quilt than the others I'm showing you, so you're going to have to see it in pieces. But this is my Music of the Spheres quilt. It's about 54 by 56 inches, and I love using this particular technique. I now call this piecing technique locomotion. I don't use 1/4 inch seams, but it needs to be very precise because I need to match all of these seams still perfectly. It's not willy-nilly, but the technique is really very forgiving. And I teach this online, so just keep your eyes open for the next time. It's been one of my most popular classes the last couple of years. It always sells out, and I would love to have you do this with me. But I also really love machine quilting, and all this machine quilting that you see on this was done on a regular domestic sewing machine, free motion, and I have a fun way of marking this particular kind of design so I don't have to mark every single nuance of that design. I mark a guide grid, and I use that guide grid to create whatever it is that I'm going to create. Let me see if I can bring this one up just a little closer to you and let you see, so how that sphere has that kind of cathedral window effect. And I believe that happens again, over on this quilt, on this one here. So you can see the quilting there. And then I shake it up and put some bubbles or pebbles. I really love quilting, and maybe the back would be fun for you to see on this one as well, because I am changing colors of threads. All right, so that's Music of the Spheres, and that's going to end today's little chat about quilts. I would love to know if this was fun for you. I know these videos are a little longer than our typical 3 to 5 minute, social media stuff. But if it's something that you like, I would like to do a follow-up if I find good interest in this. So thank you so much for watching today, you guys. I'm glad that the technical aspects worked a little better for me today, and I hope that you had fun. And I really do love hearing from you, so please do chime in. Your comments are most welcome, and we take them to heart. Remember, you can do anything you set your mind to. You can do more than you thought was possible. You just have to trust that you can and put your nose to the grindstone and then push really forward and go from there. So thank you guys so much for watching today. I wish you all the best, and let's look for each other again very soon. Before I go, I want to say Saturday, Christopher is doing combo cushion. She's doing a simple, small little project, but you're going to love this. You've got those fabric clips that go everywhere. We have pins that we need to corral. She's making a little combo cushion to corral all of those fabric clips and your pens. It's going to be really fun. So that's on Saturday, same time, same station. It's going to be 10 o'clock on the Pacific Coast time and 1 p.m. on the Eastern time, right here on the FaceTime and YouTube of thequiltshow.com. All right, guys, take care. We'll see you next time.